And with that, we are live. This is Robert Phoenix broadcasting, streaming to you live from the Hill Country here in lovely Texas. The birds are out there chirping. We had some rainfall last night and yesterday. It's always nice to have a little rain on the plain here since we are in such a uh, dry territory and in some ways very precarious in terms of the water table. Um, Texas has always had a history of kind of running hot and dry, or you know, hot and moist. uh, Ever since I've been here, it was really interesting when I first arrived. It had gone through a really major drought, and I remember seeing pictures of like really skinny cattle. There's nothing more disturbing than seeing skinny cattle, right? Skinny, like that's just really disturbing. You're like, ooh, that's not good. It's not good for the cattle. It's not good for the people, right? Skinny cattle is just a bad look. So that was happening before I got here, and then I moved here in 2012, and it started to rain like crazy. Like I'm like, what the? I mean, what happened here? What wow, is it always like this? So I think it was from 2012 to about 2014. The weather was really wet. Lots of thunderstorms. It was really dramatic. It was like, man, this is really some powerful stuff. And in fact, I think it was 2013, we had some major flooding, and there was a town here called Wimberley, and the Guadalupe River runs through Wimberley, and it really destroyed large parts of Wimberley. It's not that far from here. I mean, there have been numerous times when I've witnessed certain areas, towns that are kind of close to rivers just get completely, not completely, but partially washed away, which was the case with Wimberley. So I just thought that that was the norm, but I've come to realize that it's not the norm. And also, when tracking what was going on with the weather during that period of time, you could just see all these fronts in California that would come off the Pacific and just get redirected all the way around California, right? And that was a time when California was being put through a drought. So I think that there was weather manipulation going on. I mean, it was just such an unnatural occurrence that for almost 2 years straight, just again, watching these fronts, just like they would hit an invisible wall off the coast of California and then wrap around and then come down through the Gulf. And then we'd also, we would get at times storm fronts that would move down from the north, from the Canadian, Michigan area, mostly during the winter, and that's where we'd get our snow. But every now and then that would come down in the summer. So these two fronts would converge, which was why we would have uh, such intense rainfall at periods of time. But the last few years have been really dry, and yeah, and I don't think it's. I don't think we're the sole. Uh, I don't know. Repositor would be even the right word. I don't think we're this state. I don't think we're the sole victim of being at the sharp end of the stick when it comes to weather manipulation. Let's put it that way. All right, let's see. Let's see who we have here in the old chatteroo. So, just to give you a heads up, just before the show, I got a message from Chris, and he got pulled into a business meeting, and there's probably a pretty good chance he won't make the show. So we're gonna have to reschedule for him, and uh, so that's sort of right. It's a headline, and I was really looking forward to having him come in and talk about the 4 new elixirs that he's made with True Hemp Science. So we'll have to reschedule for him, and I hope his meeting is wildly successful. So there's that. I think we'll probably do maybe some call in today if you guys are up for it. And I'll put the link to the show inside of chat. And if you feel like getting on here and talking about anything, asking me a question, you have something on your mind, we can bring it up and shoot the shit. Another little order of business is that I think the newsletter is going to go out either today or tomorrow with an updated subscriber list. If you are a member and you do not get the newsletter, please let me know. Okay, because I went through it and I made sure that everybody who is a member should be on that newsletter list. Now, sometimes what will happen is that the newsletter will be moved into your spam, right? So you have to check your spam as well as your inbox. And it should go out, I think, either today or tomorrow. What's today? The 22nd. Should go out either today or tomorrow on Saturday. So members and non-members will get the newsletter. The members will get a link to the Big Eclipse webinar that I will be having. I believe it's next Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. What is the date for Saturday? It's the 30th. Yeah. So next Saturday, it's going to be everything you wanted to know about the upcoming eclipse and more. That'll be happening. So all the members who are a member will be able to jump in. And again, it's a really cool opportunity for people to, ask questions, speak, dialogue. It's pretty casual. I'll do a presentation and we'll go through stuff. And it winds up being, semi-formal, exchange of information and also, hanging out and just communicating with one another, which seems to be a fairly rare phenomenon in our society, unless we do it online, unfortunately. But yeah, that's happening next week. And look for that newsletter in your inbox, members and non-members alike. So let's see who we have here. Who's joining the party? We got DJMC. What's going on, brother Mike? Privacy anti-scum. I've never met a Lego man before. It must be a plastic miner. The reason I put that Lego man on Candace Owens' head is because California, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but California, the great state of California, they're always pioneering new ways in which to ensure safety, privacy, and protection for its citizens. They have decided that they're going to put Lego man heads on photos of felons. I shit you not. So if there is a photo of somebody who is a part of a crime scene, they are not going to reveal their faces. They're going to put Lego man heads on their faces. I shit you not. It's not a joke. So California is really going above and beyond their commitment to protect the privacy of people who are in compromising positions, meaning that they're about to get arrested. They don't want to, fall into this trap where they're, stereotyping people who might be arrested. So they get the Lego head. I wonder if they've got to deal with Lego. Legoland is in California, by the way. I've been there more than once. When you have a kid, if you don't go to Legoland, you have a kid, there's probably a good chance your kid will take you to therapy at some point in their life, especially if it's a boy when they grow up. So you just got to get that out of the way. You got to check that box, take the kid to Legoland so there's no psychological backlash when they get older. Let's see. Kabuki Theater NPCs everywhere except Chattaria. Chattaria is the last refuge of the souled. So once ye enter the gates, you're amongst ye brethren of the souled experience. Speaking of NPC, I was on with Olga S. Perez yesterday. And it was it was an interesting show. We talked about the eclipse, and anytime I go on somebody's show, I try to talk about something new. I was with Giuseppe on Wednesday. So what Giuseppe and I talked about was very different than what Olga and I talked about. Because it's like you don't really want to recreate your content. Like, oh, I heard that before. So what people do, they tune you out, right? So yesterday, I was connecting the eclipse to the so-called squatters rebellion, which is apparently now taking place and making headlines and news. And when you take a look at the United States chart, the United States chart based on Sibley, but of course some people won't use that because Sibley was a colonizer. But in the Sibley chart, the United States fourth house is ruled by the sign of Aries. So when you look at the eclipse, which is going to be in Aries, it is inside of the U.S. fourth house. What is the fourth house? It's home. It's the home, right? It's the four walls which you live. The second house is the land that you live on. So that's how those two work together. So the fourth house is where you live. It's where you have your emotional values. That's where they develop. They come through your parents who theoretically you live with, though not everybody lives with their parents. I understand. Sometimes these things are complicated, but you get the idea, right? So that is your version of the fourth house. So the U.S. version of the fourth house is ruled by the sign of Aries, which is an interesting sign to rule over that it's a warring sign. It is a sign that's based on conflict, but also this idea of pioneering and moving westward and manifest destiny and all that stuff. That's very fourth house. Like if you're somewhere out on the Chisholm Trail and you're going to branch off and start your homestead, you're going to need some Aries energy to, carve out your acreage, right? So in some ways that makes a lot of sense. But there's also kind of a deeper psychological meaning of Aries in the fourth house, and that sometimes homes are really unsafe places. And I mean this. What goes on inside those four walls can be absolutely brutal. And I'm not a person who is opposed to discipline, although I never spanked my kid. And, he's turned out pretty good. I have to say, he's turned out pretty good. He's still a work in progress, like the rest of us, but he's turned out pretty well. I don't think that you have to spank a kid. Now, that said, some people could say that we've gone too far in that parents have absolutely no right to parent, right? Meaning that the child and CPS and some of the social institutions have superseded the rights of parents. That's a different discussion. But I think that fourth house with Aries is a component where, sometimes growing up in America between those four walls can be violent. It can be a violent place and a very intense place, and even a battleground between parents. How many times have anybody in this chat or people who are listening to this been witness to two parents, your mother, father, stepfather, whatever combination, just going at it, right? Going at it and having conflict inside the home. It's not uncommon. And I'm sure it's not uncommon in other parts of the world either. But it's a really interesting placement for the country and having it sort of flesh out and pan out the way that it has over the course of time. Again, during an earlier period, we're pioneering, right? We're building. It's great. It's a great. Hey, you got to fight off the Comanches. There's your fourth house, Aries. And some people might say, well, again, that's you're just brutalizing colonizing. I'm not making a value judgment. History is built on stories like that one over and over and over again. Now, what's interesting about this story is that when you look at squatters' laws come right out of the period that I'm talking about. A little research on this last night. They come right out of the period that I'm talking about when people did move onto land and did occupy the land and did build out the land and did protect the land. Those laws were put into place to protect those people. It's very interesting, isn't it? Now, one would say, well, this is karma. This is karma coming back to bite the colonizers. I don't know if that's true or not, but we got a bunch of colonizers here that are in the country and are definitely going to take advantage of the same laws that were put into place so that people could more firmly establish their domicile amidst dispute, whatever that dispute was. It could be a dispute with another landowner. It could be a dispute with the people that had the land there before they showed up. Squatters' laws and squatters' rights come out of that period. And so here we are. We have a bunch of colonizers, and they're taking advantage of the very same laws. I find it really interesting. I don't like it, but I find it interesting. The irony of it is not lost on me in some ways. So I was on the show with Olga yesterday. We're talking about this, and I'm trying to, give this example. And I think it's a cogent example of how astrology is working through the U.S. chart with Aries. And Aries is taking things by force. It's not about Libra negotiating. Libra's like, well, hey, you get this part of the house, I'll get this part of the house, and I'll pay you X amount. No, that's called a contract. Aries is not about a contract. Aries is about force. And so I was talking about this, and I basically used the term barbarians at the gate. I said people will not understand this until it comes to their door. And I used the term barbarians at the gate. And one of her people, and this gets back to the NPC comment. One of her people commented in chat. She pulled the comment up. I didn't know that astrology could justify xenophobia. And I think this is a very different, not that she's different, but it's a different audience, right? It's a different audience, a different crowd. So how did I respond? Well, I told him to take his head out of his asshole. That's how I responded. Because if you can't see what's coming, I'm sorry. You're a lost cause. You're a lost cause. And it's amazing how people have been just indoctrinated into ideology. And when you it's a real interesting transposition. Like they have been able, they of course being the social engineering class and cast, they have been able to invert truth for hate. This is the big thing that people, I think, are missing. They have redefined the word truth as hate. It's that simple. It is that simple. So when they say we have no room for hate, what they're really saying is we have no room for truth. Now, theoretically, what's really ironic here and paradoxical is that truth is love. If you love somebody, you want to be truthful to that person. You don't want to be truthful to the point where um I don't know, you're abusing them, right? Like, oh, let me tell you my truth. Here's my truth about you. No, in a reasonable and agreed upon exchange with another person, if you don't tell them the truth about something, it means you don't love them. You don't love them enough to share the truth, whatever the truth is. It could even be a truth about yourself. And it might not be a pretty truth, but you would have to do that in order to, respect and love that person enough to give them the opportunity to understand what that is, to make up their minds whether or not they are going to accept the truth that you're experiencing or not. And it could be about them. And maybe there's some insight into their life based upon your own experience. Yeah, many of you are parents. As a parent, if you don't tell your kid the truth, you're not doing your child or offspring a favor. You're just not. You're letting them off the hook. Now you should theoretically allow them to live their own lives and make their own mistakes, which is really important. And and if you have the opportunity to share something that they need to hear, uh, and again, it's within the context of a conversation in which there's agreement, you have to. You just have to, because if you don't, it's a lack of love. It's a total lack of love. So that's where truth is love for me. When you say something, and if you don't say it, it really borders on neglect. What they've done is they've created this idea that truth is hate. It's very Orwellian. I'm waiting for the newest version of Merriam-Webster's. So when you look up the word truth, somewhere within the first 3 or 4 sentences, you'll find the word hate. It was an interesting moment in time. Let's see. I'm glad I don't have to do it here, at least perhaps not too often. Uh, it's not safe to do drugs anymore because of Chinese fentanyl. This is from our friend Bo. Now we can't even go on vacation because of invading squatters and broken legal system. Right? I mean, think about that. You, this this is the breakdown of a high trust society. And when you live in a low trust society, it's not good. And there are people who say, well, welcome to the rest of the world. This is what the rest of the world lives with. And guess what? Now it's your turn to live like the rest of the world. I don't think that that's entirely true, by the way. I think there are areas in the world that are low trust societies, and there are other areas in the world that are high trust societies or areas that have higher trust than you might think. I'll give you an example. The Dominican Republic and Haiti. Haiti is a low trust society. Doesn't get much lower than Haiti. Maybe Somalia. Maybe Afghanistan. On the other side, the Dominican Republic is rapidly evolving economically, socially. And when you get to a place where you're evolving economically and socially, what do people do? They want to protect their gains, whether it's their property, whether it's the accrual of their earnings from their work, their labor. They want to protect those things. And in a society like that, social codes are developed so that people understand that if you do X, Y, and Z, there are consequences for whatever it is that you're going to do. In fact, there's such a difference, a rapidly accelerating difference between the high trust society that's being developed in the Dominican Republic and the rapidly descending low trust society in Haiti, that the Dominican Republic is building a wall, a deep wall, and a high wall that separates them from Haiti. It's happening right now. The Dominican Republic can build a wall, but apparently we can't. So not every country in the world is a low trust society. It's not true. Malaysia is not a low trust society. South Korea is not a low trust society. Indonesia, not a low trust society. New Zealand, not a low trust. Even Australia, not a low trust society. So when people will say, well, this is how the rest of the world is, and now you get to have a couple of lumps just like the rest of the world. It's not true. No, what's happening is the West is being socially engineered to degrade before our very eyes. It's all part of the plan. So, and this wave of undocumented people is just the latest. It's the latest application of asymmetric warfare. We talked about Tyson Foods last week and how they're closing a plant, I believe, in Iowa. But on the other hand, they're hiring 50,000 people at a job fair in New York who are being fast-tracked to get their work visas very quickly by lawyers there who somebody's making a lot of money off this whole thing, right? Somebody's making a shit ton of money, whether it's the hotels, whether it's lawyers, whether it's bus companies, right? Somebody's making some money off this. Somebody's skimming off the top, and they don't care. All right, who else do we have here? Healing Heart Rosie's here, just working. Warlanda, Southwest Virginia, checking in. Susie, born in Fontana. What's happening, Susie Q? Let's see. Melissa Stanton. Howdy, Melissa. George Roby, greetings back to you, George. Here's my man, Ryan. Whenever I see Ryan, I am reminded, please hit the like. Please hit the like and subscribe if you like the channel, like the content, like the Astro Weather, Sunday Night Astro Live, the Friday FARcast, usually with guests. We had a couple of great guests the last few weeks. And I'm going to see if we can coax Russ out for next Friday. Get him a Friday early. We normally have him the first Friday of every month. And I think next Friday is the last Friday of the month. But maybe we can get a jump on Russ next week and get him on. There's my man, T. Jordan. What's going on? Tomas. Good to see you. Fantastic. CC Jones in the house. Who else do we have here? St. Petersburg just finished the Grand Prix, our yearly Formula One race through downtown. That's awesome. Oh, look who's here. What are you doing? What are you doing? Well, what are you going to do? What's your plan? What's your plan? Are you gonna rub on the mic and make it your own? What's your plan? Come on. You can't do that. You can't do that. I guess you can, but it's disrupting the flow of the show. Is this your show now? I think it's always been your show. It's always been your show. Yes, this is new. It's a new microphone. Well, Jasper's falling in love with the microphone. You like it, don't you? All right, it's now. Can you do me a favor? Just come over here. You've done this to the computer many times. Many times. Here, come over here. Let's give people a better look at you. There he is. There he is. The Bodhisattva. The man, the myth, the legend, the J-Man. Where's your girlfriend? I'd like to see a Formula One race. I was into that shit when I was a kid. I loved race cars. That's what you did when you were a kid back in the 60s and the 70s. You saw these, these really fast moving metallic machines. I loved it. I remember I did a report one time, I think, on Indy cars, and I actually wrote a letter to USAC. I think it was in the 5th grade, and USAC wrote me back and sent me all this kind of racing propaganda. It was cool. Let's see, who else do we have here? Jeff Rosen, what's going on, Jeff? Candace will come back stronger than ever on this 23 day. Yeah, we're going to get into the Candace Owens thing. It's a really interesting development, and so I'll try to unpack that. And I don't want to jump into it yet. Let's see, Big Ben and Jordan, the man in front and center. Wipe that smirk off your face, young man. Oops, hold on. View actual size. There we go. Lemaire. Hello, Lemaire. Grand rising to you. There's my man, Thor by the door. Mr. Steve. Susie's a fan of auto racing. Don't they do drag racing out there in Fontana, Susie? It seems like a drag racing town or a drag racing territory. Big Daddy Dumb Garlets. Charlie's here. Celeste Loveheart. We have a Celeste Loveheart sighting. Liddy Lou. Drive with my hubby to see to his brother in Oklahoma. Oklahoma is one of those places where when they did the land grab, that was some serious fucking squatting in Oklahoma. Jay's here. What's happy, Jay? Happy Friday back. WC Ray. He just bought himself a very nice axe. Let's see. Who else do we have? Oh, did I say to Mark? Mark, yes. What's going on, brother? Lepetius is here. What's happening, Lepetius? Double K, Catherine K. Guitars belong at 11. It's staying there. Olivia Provost, you're here. You're here. We're a witness to the live stream. Who else do you have? Is it Sibylla Delphos? Well, you can't talk about they because that's what happened to Candace. They reinforced the idea. We're going to get into that. And you bring up the exact point that I am going to wrap my arms around. Harry Bowie. Hey. Ryan Hall has a great weather channel. Maya Rose. Hi, Maya. Maya, I'm still thinking about you. You've not left my consciousness. DEF, death manipulation for a very long time. Absolutely. I mean, I just watch those weather patterns like, what the fuck? That doesn't seem natural. I mean, literally. And I lived in California. So I knew what the weather patterns in California were like. And it would just like hit this invisible wall and just keep wrapping around. Let's see. Who else do we have? Yeah, Ryan is he's passionate about the weather, isn't he? Soul Traveler traveling in. Lazy Philomath, my dad was part of Operation Popeye. He never divulged it to me for even plain dumb as to the identity of Wilhelm Reich. Family secrets. Rare event. I'm actually able to listen to it live. Hey, paper. Cool. I'm late. Road trip, you're on time. Good to see you. Fika, Panama in the house. Lots of news coming from Panama. 50 milliliters of 32 is the bomb from Chris, THS. We'll do a little THS moment. Let's see. Kabuki, we said hi to Bo. SP Dimples. SP, you're on the email list. Twice, by the way. Twice. So I'm just getting back to you on that. Zoracle Dax, greetings. Laura Elliott, good afternoon. There she is. Olga S. Perez, barn burner of her show yesterday over on her channel. Ralph Winter, London calling. What's going on, Ralph? US receiving. Yeah, the illegal. We played that on, or rather, Olga played that on her show. And he looks like a tranny. I'm sorry, the guy looks like a tranny. But and you know what? It's okay if you want to be a tranny. I'm not here to tell you can't be a tranny. If you want to be a tranny, be a tranny. Just don't be a house squatting tranny. Sandra Jack Shaw. Effing ridiculous with these felon photos. You know what I'm talking about, right? They're putting the fucking Lego man head on them. No more. How more fucked can Callie possibly get? Don't ask that question unless you're prepared to hear the answer. Pre-eclipse birthday, so not working for me. Still feels like Pisces season. Got hot yesterday on Olga's show. Let's see. Who else do we have? Who else is here? Steve says, I'm going to throw this up here. During the eclipse, I'm hoping for a UFO invasion, Haitian zombie apocalypse, or at least a Jesus sighting. Why not just have all three? Like, let's go for the trifecta there. I mean, go big or go home, Steve. California, always cutting edge, unfortunately. Chattaria is balm for the soul. Was indeed. This California native can't take much more of New Scum regime. Yeah. Somehow I have a vision of London Breed as governor of California in the not so distant future. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Lana Labonte. What's happening, Lana? Good to see you. "75-year-old Arizona rancher on trial for shooting a migrant on his land. No Lego head." Yeah, it's interesting how it's a very selective placement of the Lego head. I mean, that's that's the other side of this story. If you decide that you're going to take matters into your own hands and protect your property rights, there's a very good chance you're going to be the criminal. Everything's inverted. They've done a hell of a job of inverting everything. Remember, truth is hate. Let's see, who else do we have here? I can't find the Giuseppe stream. Can some please point the link? Giuseppe is on Rumble. Oh, let's see. Fear of spanking kept me in line. There's some truth. I mean, uh, the fear of God, also known as the Father, it could be a very powerful reminder of what not to do. Very powerful reminder of what not to do. The problem is when they overstep those bounds. And if you've ever been in a household situation where that's occurred, uh, you're going to have a very different view on corporal punishment. Let's just put it that way. There you go. Thanks, Tom, for putting that in there. Appreciate that. You should see how fired up Olga got yesterday. When I told the guy to take his head out of his asshole, it was like I just handed the match to Olga. She was already gassed up. I've never seen she got lit. That was entertaining as hell. Jay Schaefer, I always say people have such a huge drive to be away from their families that they have been willing to cross a country in a wagon in hostile conditions to do so. Sometimes that happens. Families, man, the whole family dynamic is really a trip. Ideally, we'd love to have this family where, it's a cohesive unit. And maybe you don't always get along, but you learn how to get along. Right? It's supposed to be a microcosm of society, right? People will have different point of views. Maybe your sister, has pink hair or whatever. The idea is that you're supposed to learn how to work these things out, pull together. I don't know any family. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's a few I knew, but families need to go through some period of trial or hardship together as a family. I mean, my family did on multiple occasions. And what do? You're supposed to pull together and get through that period of trial and hardship. Again, it's kind of a proving ground, a learning ground. Hopefully, there are values and traditions and even skills that are passed down through the family. I mean, these are the positive attributes of what a family could and I think should be. That said, there are a lot of other dynamics at play. And it feels like for many of us, family life is another slice of, earth as I don't know, learning center, right? Like, or earth is a school, and family is part of that school. And it's not always the easiest of lessons to learn because they're the most intimate and it hits us at a very early age. As an astrologer who has the opportunity to work with people, I get to hear a lot of backstory. And some of the family stories I've heard, and my life was tough growing up at times. Holy shit. I've heard some, really heavy stories, and I'm sure there are people in chat that would have their own version of some of those heavy tales. So to that extent, the family becomes a lot like other parts of living here in this realm. Lessons, learning, growing through limitation, pain, right? Which seems to be kind of more on the learning menu lately than ever. But ideally, family should provide us with a crucible of some of the other things that I was talking about. It's not always easy. And here's the part that that I think people underestimate. in many cases, when two people wind up being together for whatever reason, those choices aren't always the most solid and thought through. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, you two decided to be together. Oh, you decided to have kids. Eee. Right? I mean, that's a whole other part of the equation. And that speaks to a whole different process of being selective and discerning. And it's amazing because how this is like a chain reaction. And you could kind of see the breakdown of that process over time. Both of my parents came out of very hard situations with their family. And all they wanted to do was get away from it. And I think there's some people that can relate to that. And so they found each other. But it didn't mean that they were able to fully address their situations and understand their situations and, you know, quote unquote, heal their situations. No, their situations were still with them. They just got away from them. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people in this family dynamic. And as a result, there's not a lot of real, conscious thought that goes along with starting these relationships and having these bonds and creating offspring. There's just not a lot. There's not a lot of conscious awareness around it. And I waited until I was 44 to have a kid. And the reason I did is because even though I knew I'd probably be a pretty good dad, there was a part of me that was like, I am not ready to do this. I still have the call of the wild in me. I was really restless. Like the 90s, I was like so restless during the 90s. So I had to wait. And I was glad I did. Now, how that all happened, I'd have to take myself back to school. I'd have to rewind the last minute of this stream and listen to it because I was not the most how should I say? I was conscious, but I was I wasn't patient. Let's put it that way. Let's see who else we have here. Or get a switch and better be a good one. Yeah, I missed the switch. I got the belt and kitchen appliances. No, I'm just kidding about the ladder. Who else do we have? Lana, who has a bit of a background in some systems information and understanding these things. The irony of attacking squatters to try to clump people who are legally acquiring property through adverse property claims, which has to do with intent. The banks don't want people doing this. That's true. That's true. It's a good point. Very good point. Kelly and the kids is here. What's happening, Kelly? How are the kids? And you saw the barbarians at the gate crossing the border yesterday. They're in the gate. Snowflake comment. It was a snowflake comment. Oh, listen to this. Paula, some old school shit. In elementary school in 1976, my teacher had a paddle with holes drilled in it. He named it Smoky Joe and used it often. Wow. It was back in the days when there was corporal punishment and prayer in school. You would pray not to feel the wrath of Smoky Joe. Good for you. These folks are idiots. They've been indoctrinated into a religion. And it's it's a very fallible faith. Let's put it that way. We're in a period of people waking up to private versus public. There you go. Some are too far gone. I would agree with that. The de facto corporation taken over by a corrupt corporation. And that happened a long time ago. Zoracle, my parents used to tell stories of the nuns. You didn't want to piss off the nuns. I've heard stories about the nuns beating them daily. My parents never hit us. Who else do we have? Leon. Hey, what's happening, Leon? Good to see you. Catholic punishment can be brutal. There's some of the there's some of the best. Yeah, this is true. Or simple constructive criticism that might hurt another's feelings. That's true. I remember the first time I was accused of being hateful. I'm not going to divulge the time, place, and circumstance. But let's just say it was somebody I was very close to, and they did not understand my comment. They did not understand where I was coming from. And immediately it was branded hateful. That's what people do when they can't handle the truth. They just bust out the hate stamp. It's like, let's just negate. Let's see. Christine Moe's checking in from sunny San Diego. Steve Borg Resistance. What's happening, Steve? Zoracle says, I may tell my daughter too much truth sometimes, but with the times we are in, I can't hold it from her. You're a good parent. That's what parents do. Right? If you love somebody, you tell them the truth. Let's see. Oh, look at this. Laura Elliott got the paddle as well. I never got the paddle in school. No, they didn't do that in California. Irony in the language of trust. We all need to reclaim and establish our trusts. I agree with that. Fact last night I was actually looking at trusts, revocable and irrevocable trusts. Funny you should mention that. Let's see what the WC has to say. When I was 10-year-old, my neighbors were Catholic. The 6 kids were disciplined by having to drink Tabasco or having their hands held over a red hot stove burner. Jesus. How much Tabasco did they have to drink? That's like borderline abusive. The stove thing is abusive. That's like some MK Ultra self-partitioning harsh love. Bo is on fire today. There can be no first world in the WFers. New World Order. They want us all dependent on. Own nothing, eat the bugs. Yes, I'd agree with that. Queen Lisa Society. What's happening, Queen Lisa? Queen Aries. Let's call you Queen Aries. That Texas border is a little bigger than the Haitian DR border. It is, but it's about the intent, man. It's about the intent. So, as a resident of Texas, I know a little bit about the border, and you could build the wall up until you get to the mountain regions, which makes it decidedly more difficult to cross. It's not impossible. Not impossible. We're Americans, damn it. But it's the intent, right? It's the intent. Let's see. Who else do we have? How does the Dominican Republic maintain any sense of order with Haiti going on? It's really a trip, isn't it? They're very different cultures. Very different cultures. In fact, they are so different, not just culturally or economically, they're even different ecologically. More rain falls on the Dominican side of the island. Wrap your noggin around that. There's a bit of a reason for that. So when Haiti overthrew France, because they did, it was a bloody revolution, right? A lot of lives were lost. When Haiti overthrew France and kicked the French out, the French eventually came back. And they came back with ships with big cannons. And they docked them right off the coast of Port-au-Prince. And they sat down with the now sovereign country of Haiti and the leadership and basically said, you cost us a lot of money by claiming your independence. And you got to pay for that now. You got to pay for your independence. And if you don't pay for the independence, you see those ships out there? They're going to destroy this entire place. That's what happened. So the Haitians signed a debt agreement with the French. So what did they do to start to pay off the debt to the French for their independence? They deforested Haiti. They chopped down a bunch of trees, right? So did those trees ever get replanted, replenished? The answer to that is no. So now you've got one island, lush and green and not denuded due to debt, and another island or another part of the island where it's kind of stumpy. So those things actually matter as far as the ecosystem goes. The other reason is because of the fact that Haiti has deforested a lot of its own trees, it's changed the topography of the soil. So it doesn't retain as much moisture either, whereas the Dominican Republic, who did not do that, retains more of the moisture in the soil. It's just weird, right? It's just weird how there can be such a divide across so many layers between two countries. Wild. The police station is now a homeless camp. Let's see. Steve says, I like to have live target practice. There you go. It's the banks. Who runs the banks? Who runs the banks? That's a question I think that eventually would have gotten Candace Owens fired. Well, she did get fired, didn't she? Hello, Julie Sunshine. How are you? Your husband's doing better. Give us an update. The love of money. Who else do we have here? Let's get a Julie Sunshine husband. Banks rule the world, but they operate with debt FRNs, aka promissory. Only the U.S. Treasury has true cash. Yeah, who runs the banks? That's a conversation that gets you in hot water. I'm doing well. My husband is stable. It seems to be saying stable, but he's still very sick. He's got liver disease. I'm sorry, Julie. He's going to make it out. He's going to get out of there. All right. We weren't taught how to operate properly with regard to our trust, backed by the full faith and trust of the United States of America. Clearly, there were a lot of things we weren't taught. That's a big one. Let's see. Start reading, get educated rather than entertained. They prefer we fall for bread and circus tricks. Yeah, I'd agree with that. However, you may have more imminent activities than reading coming at you very quickly. Just saying. Okay, let's get into Candace Owens. Let's talk about her. And what happened to Candace Owens? What happened to her? Well, Candace, I believe, incurred the wrath of Ben Shapiro once too often. This is what happened. And it started with her friendship with Kanye West, which Ben Shapiro did not like. And to the Daily Wire's credit, and Andrew, whatever his name is, who runs the Daily Wire, they kind of, Candace is a popular person. Candace is kind of the darling of the conservative, content gobbling public. Candace Owens here's who Candace Owens reminds me of. When Kamala Harris was a DA in Oakland, she used to cross that bridge all the time to go to San Francisco and hang out with the socialites at Nob Hill. And she became their darling. It's like, oh, look at her. Look at her. She's so charming. She's so cultured. She's so beautiful. And she's black. Let's give her a hug. We want her. We like her. I mean, really, she became kind of the mascot of the liberal hoi polloi in San Francisco. You go back and you look at the society pages from the 90s, you'll see Kamala Harris in there with all these other white debutantes, right? So she became very popular with that group. And I think some of that has to do with a virtue signal. The other part is, I'm sure, before she became possessed by the cackling demon, I'm sure Kamala would come off as being very charming. If I'm not mistaken, Kamala is a Libra, right? I think she's a Libra with a Gemini rising, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Libras are charming people. She was probably very charming. So that got her some run. Plus, she was connected to Willie Brown, and Willie Brown he was the fixer, right? Like Willie Brown had an incredible amount of power in California politics and in San Francisco politics, particularly when he was mayor of San Francisco. So if you were connecting with Kamala Harris and, she was being invited to all of your socialite events, you had access to Willie Brown. You probably had access to him anyways, but it was like, just easier access. Candace Owens, in some ways, is the conservative version of Kamala Harris. And I'm not saying she's anything like her. I'm just saying that as a Black female conservative truth person, it just checks a box, and it's a demographic that a lot of conservatives theoretically could feel good about. Like, see, not all women are like that. Not all Blacks are like that. Not all Black women are like that. We've got Candace Owens. She's great. So she has a very broad appeal here in that community. Candace, as a Black conservative woman, outside of that world, is looked at very differently. They probably revoked her Black card a long time ago. Like liberal, Black, progressive politics revoked her Black card a long time ago. So she doesn't really translate across that spectrum. Hell, Shamika Michelle has been on this show a couple times. Doesn't even translate across that spectrum. And Shamika is street. Shamika almost killed a dude in high school, put a gun to the guy's head. The girl was a girl who is, banging her boyfriend. Put the gun to her head, pulled the trigger twice, not once, but twice. And nothing happened to the girl. That's where Shamika comes from. But she's about as conservative as it gets. And she doesn't translate across the aisle. Like she's hated. So it doesn't matter if somebody like Candace, who is kind of a cute little Cupid doll, speaks well, has great diction, right? Doesn't matter if you're Candace, doesn't matter if you're Shamika. Like once you are on a certain side of the fence, it's not going to translate. Your act won't play in Chicago, right? But in terms of Candace's demographic, she's big. Now, how big is she? We're about to find out, because Ben Shapiro in the Daily Wire let her go because of her interview. Well, it's been cumulative, right? It's been cumulative in the sense that it started with Ye, and of course, Ye made a lot of very disparaging comments that Ben Shapiro did not agree with and went on the offensive. I mean, Ben Shapiro got on every fucking talk show that he could. If Kanye was on Lex Fridman, Ben Shapiro was going to be on Lex Fridman. And he was going to spend an equal amount of time defending his position, his people, his faith, as Kanye did when he accused certain people from Ben Shapiro's world of doing certain things that were keeping him down. Not only keeping him down, but other people like him down. So Ben went on the offensive. And because of Candace's relationship with Ye, things got icy. Very icy. And so Candace is a Taurus. Ask a Taurus to back off. They don't. Tauruses can be very even keeled, and they don't. Tauruses they don't get really worked up in some way. I mean, they do when you get them really pissed off. You don't want to piss off a Taurus, because once they get rolling, look out. Right. but they're slow to anger. They're more docile. They eat good food, wear nice clothes, have great sex, have a nice home. I mean, it's not that superficial, but you know what I'm saying, right? That's kind of the baseline. But they are a fixed sign. They're a fixed sign. So Candace was fixed. She wasn't going to apologize for her relationship with Ye. And she kept going down this path. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that everybody at the Daily Wire are fucking warmongers, including Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson is a warmonger because he's complicit. He doesn't say anything. And he gets a paycheck from those people. And Ben Shapiro wants Gaza wiped off the face of the earth. Ben Shapiro, if you sat him down and he was completely candid with you, would be more than happy to promote genocide in Gaza. He's almost there in public already, right? So Candace had a problem with that. The ongoing feud between Candace and Ben Shapiro just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And Candace, being a Taurus, would not back off. She wasn't going to do it, to her credit. Because I think it would be really easy. Now, again, let's state some facts here. Candace married a rich dude. She doesn't have to worry about money. Candace Owens will be fine. Candace Owens doesn't have to work another day in her life. She'll be fine. She married into a bloodline. Dude's English. I think the father is like a knight or some shit like that. The guy's father. She'll be fine. It's funny. I was watching. By the way, I highly recommend watch Jason Whitlaw from last night. It's a 2-parter, and he's going down the Diddy rabbit hole. And the way that he's setting this thing up is fucking brilliant. It's some of Jason's best work. And tonight he's going all in on the Diddy thing. And I was not aware of this. We're going to get back to Candace in a moment because there's a point I want to make. I was not aware of this, but Diddy's dad was a major drug dealer in New York City. Right? I mean, a major drug dealer. So there were these guys that ran the basically the coke and the heroin trade in Harlem. Nicky, what's his name? They made that movie American Gangster about him, and Denzel Washington played him. He was like the Godfather. Nicky Barnes. Diddy's dad was in business with Nicky Barnes. I never knew this. So Diddy is the son of a New York City drug lord. He was born into crime. And he started off as a dancer in that guy Heavy D, the rapper. That's where he got to start. And eventually he gets promoted and gets his own label. Bad Boy gets his own TV channel, right? Which is, what is it? It's not Fuse, it's the other one. Gets his own TV channel. Diddy's a made man. He's part of this larger crime syndicate that Jason is breaking down on. It's brilliant. Anyway, one of the things that he talked about is the difference between fuck you money and fuck me money. And he said a lot of these guys in the rap world, at the mogul status like Diddy or Jay-Z, have fuck me money, right? That's even bigger than fuck you money. I would say Candace has a minor version of that because of She married into peerage. She married into a family line, heraldic, and the guy comes from money. Candace doesn't have to work another. Candace can say these things. I wouldn't be surprised if, Candace continues to be Candace and be more Candace than Candace, to be even, candid Candace. I wouldn't be surprised if she did that. Now, who would, platform her? That's a whole other story, right? That's a whole other story, because we know that YouTube is very selective, and they will promote certain people, and they will shadow ban or deplatform other people for violating, community guidelines. I don't know how Jason stays on YouTube, to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't know how he does it. Maybe I don't know, but he does. Maybe Candace could get a run on her own on YouTube. She could certainly go to Rumble and hang out with the other people that have been semi-canceled, like Steven Crowder and Russell Brand. But I don't think Rumble has the audience, clearly, that YouTube does. She could start her own platform, her own website, and stream off of that. And she, and somebody like Candace has enough cachet where she might be able to do that. But you almost have to build it from scratch. It helps that she has a public face, incredibly well known. And there were people that would, I think, support her in her journalistic efforts and interviewing people. I think that could happen. But you almost have to build it from scratch. You have to start an email list, and it's a lot of work, even for somebody like Candace Owens. But I think it's possible. It'll be interesting to see what happens. She wound up essentially pissing off the people that make a lot of decisions, big decisions. And what's the saying? If you want to know who runs your society or who rules your world, talk about them and find out what happens. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's basically what's happened with Candace. Now, in a larger picture, in the bigger picture, I think it's stupid. I don't think the Daily Wire should have canned her. They shouldn't have canned Candace, because when you do something like that, what are you doing? Or what are they doing? They're reinforcing a stereotype. They're basically making Candace's case for her. It's stupid. And again, is Ben Shapiro in the board? So maybe there were sponsorship issues. Maybe their sponsors sat on him and said, look, if you don't fire her ass, we're pulling our products. Maybe it just came down to that. It's still making a case that what she is ultimately talking about, even what Ye was talking about, look what happened to him. Made the case. So again, we're in this period now. We'll bring this back to astrology. With Pluto and Aquarius, we deal with the inversion. We're seeing the inversion. Like, everybody's putting on their fucking they live glasses. We see the inversion, but there are inverse effects for adverse actions. So when somebody like Candace Owens gets canned because they want to censor her, or her point of view is hateful, maybe substitute truthful for hateful, but hateful, the inverse happens. People are looking and go, Well, gee, she was just talking about this stuff, and now she's being fired because of this stuff. Really interesting. Really, really interesting. Earlier this week on 15 Minutes, I was talking about this woman, um, Rennell Brooks Moon, who was a PA announcer for the San Francisco Giants for 24 years. And San Francisco Giants are owned by a consortium of people, one of whom is Charles Johnson, who owns 25% of the team. And he's a majority owner. So I would say that the other 75% are chopped up pretty good. And last year, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Rennell, I think Charles Johnson tweeted something, and Rennell retweeted his tweet and said, "I'm not going to turn a blind eye to this." It's their employer. I think it might have been something about Herschel Walker, who was running for Senate in Georgia. And everybody who is on the left side of the spectrum viewed Herschel Walker as being a Trump toady, a magatard, an ignorant Tom. This is how they viewed Herschel Walker. So, of course, she's going to look at Charles Johnson's tweet and make the connection that Charles Johnson is racist. That's what she was saying. He's the owner of the team. And Rennell was a big Black Lives Matter person. Whatever. You can have your political beliefs, but when you, and maybe this is where it's a weird gray area with Candace, because they are talking politics. Rennell is just a PA announcer. Very popular. She's just a PA announcer. You know, it's nothing more than that. But when you cross your employer in public on Twitter with your contract extension comes up and they lowball you, and you say, well, I really wanted to make more than that. Well, they'll say, yeah, well, we're offering. And if you leave, don't like it, we'll give you a nice little payout because you've been really good to us. We love your service here. You know, we'll cut you a check for $100,000. You just have to sign this little agreement here that it says, you know, we'll end you. Look, when you leave a company, and I haven't left too many companies, but I left two, and there were certain things I had to agree to when I left that company, and you had to sign it. And that signature helped you get your check when you left. That's the way it is. So I think that's what happened. That I'll take the money, I'll sign the paper, and I will not make this an issue in public, whatever the issue is. Of course, everybody in the Bay Area media is making an issue about it. How could they do this? He's racist. The San Francisco Giants, they're so out of touch with the public. He's the owner of the team. But there's a hue and cry in San Francisco and the Bay Area and the media that Rennell was unfairly released, the beloved Rennell. And the reason is because Charles Johnson, the owner of the Giants, is a racist. I wonder how many people would have the same view of Candace Owens, especially on the left. Would they say they're racist? Ben Shapiro's a racist. The Daily Wire are racist because they let go of Candace Owens. The left would never do that. Although you may have some interesting jokes every now and then. Like you may have somebody, what's her name? Joy Reid, make a snarky remark like, Candace can always come over to our side, right? Candace, come on home. Come on home, girl. We miss you. We'll give you a hug. I think you'll see some of that in the media. But they won't come with, guns blazing outrage that it was racist. It won't. It's so fascinating. It's kind of like the Tahiti Dominican Republic version of what we've been talking about. Woman, black, both let go, both in broadcast, one in broadcast journal, both in broadcast. Renelle used to be a DJ in California before she was the PA announcer, right? I mean, on the surface, yeah, kind of similar. One's younger than the other. One's certainly prettier than the other. Not to say that Renelle wasn't pretty when she was young, or in her older age, she has a graceful attraction, let's say. But they both are case studies that represent something very similar, and yet the reaction and the outrage and who supports them or doesn't support them is the story of this country right now. That's how much of a house divided we are. It's fascinating. I think that part of it's fascinating. And I was actually thinking, the weird thing is I was thinking about Candace Owens when Renelle got fired. I was thinking about Candace Owens, like, that there was this weird connection here. Because there are black female conservative commentators. She's not the only one, but she's the one that has, I think, the biggest platform or had the biggest platform and is the most recognizable. So somewhere in my brain, these wheels were spinning, right? These wheels were spinning. But I think it's a really interesting case study that these two women, broadcast media, both black, both let go, and the reaction and the outrage are not the same. Although we'll find out with Candace. This is all like just kind of breaking news, and I'm sure Jason will probably do a bit of it on his show tonight. How could he not? But I got to tell you, go back and watch that first episode of this two-parter with Diddy. It's really, really good. And he has Ice-T on his show. Or he had a clip of Ice-T from the 90s when he was part of this, I guess it was a talk show, and it was all, kind of black conservative leaders and people from the hip hop world. And they were talking about the effects of hip hop on, the black community and black youth. And there was this woman who was like, not for it. What messages are you sending? These young people look up to you. What messages are you sending? And of course, Ice-T is like, have you ever heard of hardcore rap? I'm the founder of hardcore rap, and my lyrics speak to the struggle. When I go into the prisons and I talk to the men in the prisons, they understand me. They get me. I can speak to them directly because I speak the language of the street and the people, and yada, 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 yada. Like that's what his case was for his version of rap. I remember I used to work at this record store called Rasputin's. And of course, you'd work in the store and they'd play music. And I remember when Cop Killer came out, and it was basically Ice-T rapping over really bad metal. And I couldn't wait for them to take the fucking record off. And it's not because I don't like intense music. I like intense music. But it seemed, what's the word? Contrived. Seemed really contrived. And it sounded horrible. The irony of all of this is that Ice-T would wind up playing a fucking cop on TV for years. I think he's still doing it. The irony. Mr. Cop Killer, Mr. Hardcore Rap Godfather, Mr. I'm going into the prison and talk to the prisoners because my hip hop speaks to them. My rap speaks to them. Plays a fucking cop on TV for years and gets paid handsomely for it. That's America. That is America. If you pretend you're a gangster long enough, you will eventually be rewarded. That's the American story. Maybe Candace wasn't gangster. Look, it doesn't work for Shamika. I mean, Shamika doesn't try to be a gangster. She's a street. Shamika's lived that life. But it doesn't play. It doesn't translate to the other side. So we'll see what happens to her. And I'm really interested on how the conservative community deals with this. You know, how awake are they? Are they just gonna, say, oh, poor Candace, I hope she lands on her feet, and she should never have ever spoken poorly about Israel. Israel's so important to us. Israel's the most important place outside of these four walls. Never have spoken poorly about Israel. But they're our allies. Not only they're our allies, they're our salvation. What was she thinking? Well, maybe she deserves it. Poor girl. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how this thing plays. I do think there will be some people who will have that reaction. Now, on the other hand, what does it do? It sends a message to other people who are so-called truthers, or people that want to speak the truth, and people with popular platforms, that if somebody like Candace Owens, who is, again, on the conservative side of the fence, she's beloved. They love her. She's their girl, right? She's their version of Kamala circa 1990 with the San Francisco socialite set. She has pull. She's popular. She's pretty. She's heterosexual. She has kids. Checks all those boxes. And yet, you hit the third rail and you're gone. That sends a message. That's what it's supposed to do. In as much as it removes Candace Owens from her platform. That's the other part of this. Like, if it could happen to Candace Owens, guess what? It could happen to you. And don't think that Jason Whitlock isn't paying attention to this. I'm sure he is. I'm sure he's paying attention to it. Is there anything else today? What time is it? 1:30. We've gone in 90 minutes. I was going to open the lines. Do you guys want to chime in? Let me here. Let me check in with you guys. See if you guys want to jump in. I'm going to come back into chat. Do you guys want to jump in and anybody want to jump in and get on here and speak your mind, ask some questions, whatever you want to do? Let's see. Oh, is Sam running an astrological seminar inside a chat? You know, I think Sam should get his own YouTube channel. Don't you guys think so? I think Sam should get his own YouTube channel. I think Sam would be a fine YouTube presenter. Good chat. Who is Sam? Yeah, good question. Let's see. Sour Diesel. Very smart and pretty. Yes, she is. The truth movement started off as being compromised. Yeah. There you go. Good person, funny too. Sam, go start your own YouTube channel. I'm sure you'll get a lot of followers. Let's see. By watching Mark Madness. No, I'm not. But I did like the fact that Oakland beat Kentucky. I like that. I like upsets. I like the fact that a guy who looks like a retired cop scored 30 points. There you go, Sam. Sam, go get a channel going. There you go. I heartily support you getting your own channel, Sam. Kate, I should too, but I hate attention. Let's see. Please talk about the comet that'll be in the sky during the solar eclipse. You mean the devil's comet? How much more doom do you want? You want doom with a cherry on top? We'll save that for Sunday night. We'll do a little comet research for Sunday night. You know, back in the day, eclipses were solar eclipses were compared to dragons because they ate the sky. I thought that was an interesting. Both comets and eclipses have been thought of as dragons. Both of them. Although I think it was somewhere in Malaysia. I got this up here. This was a very interesting kind of folkloric take on eclipses. In Tahiti, they believed that the sun and the moon during the eclipse were making love. I like that. I think the Tahitians had the right idea. All these other cultures really all agreed upon the fact that the eclipse was like a dragon. In fact, in India, they named the dragon in the sky. Was it Ketu? The Indians named the eclipse or the dragon Ketu, which of course has to do with the nodes. Let's see. So here's some historical facts about eclipses. So the Great War, which is of course World War One, broke out at the time of an eclipse in August of 1914. And you may want to put this in your trivia notes. There was an eclipse just before the sinking of the Titanic in 1912. So there are some events that happen around eclipses. There's an eclipse in Iran. I think, was it the one in 96? That might have been a lunar eclipse. But there was an eclipse in Iran. And there was a massive earthquake on the heels of that. I remember that. I was like, wow. That was a pretty potent. Here we go. Here's another one. In a solar eclipse, August 10th, 1980. The 1980 event came a year after the Ayatollah threw the Shah of Iran out of Iran. So that was a year to the day with that eclipse almost. What else do we have here? Okay, no, Thailand. I got Thailand and India mixed up. Thailand has experienced more eclipses in the last 60 years than any other country. The people still believe that a monster called Rahu causes the darkness by eating the sun. So Rahu and Ketu. Rahu would be the moon, right? And the lunar, Rahu and Ketu. The Druids did not believe that the eclipse was a dragon, but that the sun and the moon were gods in and of themselves. And one god was eating another god. So the Druids saw this as being a cannibalistic act in the heavens between one god and another. Let's see. So in Japan, they have a tradition of covering wells during eclipses because they believe in Japan that the wells could be poisoned by an eclipse. That's interesting. And in the Philippines, they too believe that eclipses are a giant dragon in the sky. They became particularly disturbed during the 1988 eclipse, which occurred during the year of the dragon. So, what year are we in now? We're in the year of the dragon. And the dragon in Chinese astrology is essentially the sign of Aries. It is Aries in Chinese astrology. Where's the sun? It's in Aries. And what is an eclipse sun? Well, in many cultures, it's a dragon. So we have a dragon sun in the sign of Aries in the year of the dragon, which is Aries. Be very afraid. Be very, very afraid. All right. Ouroboros. UK royals are very eclipsy, including Kate. Would not be surprised if there are more literal endings, course corrections. Where's Kate? Who's Kate? I haven't seen Kate in a long time. She's gone into witness protection program. Where does the belief from the sun to not look at it? I don't know, Maya. I think it's I don't know where that belief of looking at the eclipsed sun comes from. probably comes from the same place where people attribute the eclipse to being a dragon. Now, I looked at the sun during the eclipse here in Texas with my glasses. And, other than my mother dying, um, my world has been relatively stable. And it's not like my mother passed away um, in a surprising fashion because she was, not well. So, and she was at the height, man. She was at the height of her game during that event. That was so cool. All right. I think I'm out of here. The phoenix rises every 500 years. News just broke, Robert. Cancer, apparently. I see. Well, it's the end of the royals, with the exception of William. But this is what we're seeing with Pluto and Aquarius, right? I mean, it's the opposite sign of the solar logos in Leo. See, it's the end. It's the end of the royals. And you know what's really bringing it back to this whole idea of home ownership? We have this saying, a man is the king of his castle, right? Which extends into home. A long time ago, home ownership it didn't happen. You didn't own shit. It belonged to whoever's principality you were living in. You didn't own it. So it's a relatively new concept, right? So this whole idea of the royals and a man and a king in his castle might even extend down into home ownership, because that was the whole idea. We were recreating this model that people who had been landed or had property passed down through them because whoever somewhere in their family line somehow managed to subdue who'd had it before, right? It's an interesting reflection of that. All right, I'm frozen, and you know what happens when I freeze? I have to hit the restart. Oh, I kind of unfroze there for a second. But in this case, I am going to bid you adieu. I'm going to say goodbye for the day. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to support our sponsor, Chris over at True Hemp Science. You know the drill. Spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS, and you will get a goodie bag with your order. In the meantime, have yourself a great day. I'll see you back here on Sunday night. We'll get into some Eclipse stuff. I got to save some of the good material, though, for the webinar, I have to say. I can't give it all away. All right. Take care, everybody. Love you all. Chattaria, you're the best. Bye for now.